This is a rough estimate, about 200, not a specific number. We're in constant contact with our allies. We're going to continue to be in communication with them. At the end of the day, the president wants to bring our troops home, and he's working towards that. He wants to do that in a safe and peaceful way, in the best way possible, to make sure that we have complete safety for our troops that are abroad.
Sarah Sanders, about 2 hours ago, the White House deciding to keep a small number of U.S. troops in Syria, pulling back from the president's previous call for a complete withdrawal. Time for our headliner. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican Foreign Relations Committee Chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
I've never been a headliner. It's kind of cool.
Nice to see you.
Got to go to Vegas next.
You fit the role well, so thanks for being here.
Sing.
You were not happy about the initial call to get 2,000 out. Now it appears about 200 will stay. What do you think of that call?
I think it's a very smart decision by the president. He listened to sound military advice. He adjusted his policies. The goal is to make sure ISIS doesn't come back. If we'd have kept troops in Iraq, we would never had ISIS. Now that the caliphate's destroyed, and it really has been destroyed, congratulations, Mr. President, on making that happen, this 200 will attract probably 1,000 Europeans. You've got to remember, thousands of Europeans were killed by ISIS fighters coming from Syria into Europe. So now the burden falls on Europe. 80% of the operation should be European, maybe 20% us. We're flipping the responsibilities. Great decision by the president to make sure ISIS doesn't come back, Iran doesn't fill in the vacuum, and you don't have a war between the Turkey and the Kurds who helped us.
But in December, he didn't see it that way. You spoke to him last night.
Well,
what changed his mind?
I've spoken to him continuously. I said, Mr. President, you deserve a lot of credit for destroying the caliphate, but we need an insurance policy to make sure they don't come back. And the Kurds who helped us, in the eyes of Turkey, the YPG Kurds are part of the PKK. We need a buffer zone between Turkey and the Syrian Democratic Forces so they don't go to war. You don't want to end one war and start another. We want to make sure ISIS never comes back, and Iran cannot get these oil fields that are in Syria. So by having a small U.S. presence, we'll attract a lot of Europeans. It's time for the Europeans to take the lead here, and that's what this plan's about, is to put them in the lead with our help.
This decision comes on the heels of a meeting with Erdogan. Was something discussed in that changed his mind as well?
Well, I went to Turkey, and I told Erdogan, you're not going into Syria. If you go into Syria, you're going to create a war between the Arabs, the Kurds, and the Christians inside Syria. They don't want Turkish troops coming in. The best thing we can do to help Turkey, and they have a legitimate national security concern, is a safe zone where the West, NATO plus 200 of us, will keep the parties apart, watch ISIS, and make sure the Iranians with the Russians and Assad do not come in and take the oil. This is a very good plan. Trump deserves credit for using a small American force of 2,700. We've lost 8 people in the last 3 years. God bless the 8. But this is the most successful model since 9/11. Indigenous forces, Kurds and Arabs, doing the fighting with our help. This has worked, and I'm so glad we've adjusted.
Had he not gone the way he did in December, do you think James Mattis would still have a job?
I don't know, but I know that when Mattis left, we accelerated the effort to destroy the caliphate. I really like General Mattis, but it was time to get somebody new. The president really put the metal to the pedal to destroy the caliphate after Mattis left. Really, within a month, we've destroyed the caliphate. Now we've got a residual force integrated with the Europeans to keep the peace, to make sure ISIS doesn't come back, and to check Iran. We've got a force down south. There's a superhighway from Tehran to Beirut that the Iranians are using to flow weapons into Lebanon and Syria. We've got a garrison down there sitting on top of that highway. This is important for Israel. We have a post-caliphate strategy that is very smart.
It's a matrix, geographically.
I do want to ask you about this quickly before we move on, because we had a reporter on earlier on our show talking about Iraq, and you haven't mentioned them. And he was talking about the number of ISIS fighters reportedly crossing over and ending up there. He said about 1,000 a month.
That's why we keep our base in Iraq. So we're on both sides of the border. A couple of hundred people working with the Europeans will keep Syria together. We have a bigger force in Iraq. We can jump across the border if we need to, and we can kill them when they come into Iraq. So President Trump has created a scenario where we can be safe with the other people in the region doing the fighting and our allies taking most of the burden. I support more people doing more, we're doing less, but it is in our national security interest to hold this place together. The Kurds who helped us, we owe it to them to make sure they're not slaughtered. ISIS, we can't ever let them come back. And at the end of the day, Iran is checkmated with this move by President Trump.
2 more topics here. I got a long list, but only so much time. What is your expectation for Chairman Kim and Hanoi, Vietnam?
This is sort of a relationship being built. My expectations are to give up his nuclear weapons over time, to convince him that he is better off without a nuclear arsenal than he is with one. His nuclear weapons could fall in the hands of people who would actually use them if he would not. The president is right to want this transition from a nuclear North Korea to a non-nuclear North Korea. The Japanese don't have nukes. South Korea don't have nukes. They don't have nuclear weapons. So my hope is that we'll set a plan out over the next year or so where you can denuclearize and get the benefit of security and peace and stability in North Korea. We won't have a nuclear threat.
Well, my question is, though, what would be involved in that plan such that we don't have the situation that we have in Iran?
First thing you got to do is we're talking. Why is Kim talking to him? Why is the caliphate destroyed? Because Donald Trump has been a very good commander-in-chief. Chairman Kim's at the table because he's afraid of Trump. We broke the Iran nuclear agreement, which was putting Iran on a pathway to a nuclear weapon, and we destroyed the caliphate, and we got the Taliban at the table in Afghanistan. Why? We've been strong in the face of adversity. Donald Trump has been the opposite of Barack Obama. The reason the Taliban's at the table, Kim's at the table, is Trump has shown strength. Now we got to close the deal. Now's the time to close the deal.
My expectation is you need to take something away from this. Singapore was a novelty. How are they going to greet each other? What does it look like?
We need a roadmap from this. We need a roadmap of how this ends and when it ends. That's what we need.
Border security, Democrats are pushing this resolution. Will you vote with them when it comes before the Senate?
Absolutely not. I'm 100% with the President.
How many Republicans do you believe will vote with them?
A handful, but here's the point. Trump sent troops to the border. Obama sent troops to the border. Bush sent troops to the border. What's the difference of deploying forces to the border to secure it versus having them build a barrier while they're there? I think he has all the power under a statute and as commander-in-chief to send troops to the border to actually erect barriers. We're safer with a secure border. Nobody objected to Obama sending troops. What's the difference of a troop going to the border to guard the border versus building a barrier to make sure it stays intact? I think he's got all the authority he needs, and there will be enough to sustain a veto.
And we allocate money to assist with building borders overseas.
You know what pisses me off so much is that Democrats have voted in the past for $44 billion, $9 billion for barriers, and all of a sudden Trump's president, he gets $1. So this hypocrisy is pretty stunning, and I hope Republicans will not reward this, quite frankly.
You seem to have you've been mad for some time now.
Well, I'm mad about this because I helped Obama. You know, I voted for the Gang of Eight bill. I've sat down with Democrats to try to solve this problem on a Democrat's watch. Nobody suggested we did not need to secure the border. Nobody suggested this was a manufactured crisis on Obama's watch. So what's changed? They just hate Trump, and that does bother me.
Last question. You speak with him a lot. You met with him last when?
A couple of days ago.
The Mueller matter could be out. Could be out this afternoon.
Right.
Could be out in 2 weeks. We'll see on that.
Yeah.
Michael Cohen's going to testify publicly next Wednesday.
Right.
The president's going to be overseas talking about nuclear war and
I don't
negotiating
get
a way
that.
out
I
of it.
really don't understand.
How do you think he is doing in your personal discussions with him? Does he like the job? Does he enjoy it? What's the feedback?
He is having a lot of fun being president, and it's stressful, and he's under siege. He gets it every day from different directions, but he's got a good sense of humor. He knows what he wants to accomplish. The Syrian decision shows he listens. Obama would never listen. General Obama turned out to be a bad general. President Trump is actually listening to his military leaders. Yeah, does he think they've taken a wrecking ball to his life? Yeah. Has it deterred him from being a focused president? No. Our economy is humming. Our military is stronger. Our enemies are on their back foot. I'm very pleased with what the president's doing, and I think the Mueller investigation will result in no evidence of collusion between Trump and the Russians. I really believe that.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Thanks, guys.